The story of nuclear energy is one of humanity's greatest triumphs, a saga of unlocking the immense power hidden within the atom's core. In the 20th century, this breakthrough reshaped the world, lighting up cities, revolutionizing medicine, and even propelling ships through Arctic ice. Today, as we stand in the third decade of the 21st century, nuclear energy is experiencing a renaissance, a resurgence driven by an insatiable global demand for power and an urgent need to combat climate change. This is not just a tale of technology, it's a narrative of human ambition, resilience, and the relentless pursuit of a cleaner, brighter future. Welcome to the new era of the peaceful atom. Why is nuclear energy back in the spotlight? The world is hungrier for electricity than ever before. Electric vehicles hum through our streets, data centers powering artificial intelligence hum around the clock, and burgeoning populations in developing nations are plugging into modern life. This surge in demand collides with a pressing reality. Our planet cannot sustain the environmental toll of fossil fuels. Coal and oil plants belch carbon dioxide, warming the globe and choking the air, while renewable sources like wind and solar, though valuable, falter under the weight of weather dependency and land use. Nuclear energy, by contrast, stands as a titan of efficiency. A single reactor can power hundreds of thousands of homes for decades, emitting negligible carbon, comparable to the cleanest wind farms. It's a reliable, high-output solution that doesn't flinch when the wind stops blowing or the sun sets. But the peaceful atom's reach extends far beyond power plants. In hospitals, nuclear technology is a lifeline, with radioactive isotopes targeting cancer cells with surgical precision, sparing healthy tissue. In the vastness of space, nuclear engines promise to carry humanity to Mars and beyond, outpacing the chemical rockets of yesterday. On Earth's frozen frontiers, Russia's nuclear-powered icebreakers carve paths through Arctic seas, delivering supplies and enabling scientific exploration where no other vessels could tread. These are not mere technical feats. They are testaments to the atom's transformative potential. The journey to this moment has been anything but smooth. In the mid-20th century, nuclear energy was a beacon of hope. Scientists, having unlocked the atom's secrets, dreamed of a world powered by near-limitless energy. The Soviet Union led the charge, launching the world's first nuclear power plant in Obninsk, a small town that proved atoms could illuminate homes rather than destroy them. This sparked a global race, with nations from France to the United States building reactors at a dizzying pace. By the late 20th century, nuclear plants were generating enough electricity to rival entire coal industries, with France emerging as a powerhouse, supplying most of its electricity through reactors and even exporting surplus energy. Yet the path darkened. Catastrophic accidents, 3 Mile Island in the United States and Chernobyl in the Soviet Union, cast long shadows, fueling public fear and skepticism. These disasters, coupled with falling oil prices and bureaucratic hurdles, stalled the industry's momentum. New reactors stopped rising, expertise began to fade, and nuclear energy seemed relegated to the sidelines. But the tide has turned. Rising energy demands, coupled with the existential threat of climate change, have reignited interest. Innovators like Elon Musk champion nuclear as a cornerstone of sustainable progress, while new technologies promise to make reactors safer and more efficient than ever. Enter thorium, a lesser-known element poised to redefine nuclear energy. Unlike uranium, thorium is more abundant, produces less waste, and is inherently safer, shutting down gracefully in emergencies rather than spiraling out of control. Meanwhile, small modular reactors, compact, flexible, and cost-effective, are opening doors to nuclear power in regions once deemed impractical. These advancements signal a shift. Nuclear energy is no longer the risky giant of old, but a refined tool for a sustainable future. This text will guide you through the epic arc of nuclear energy. We'll explore its origins, from the skepticism of scientific giants to the triumphs of the first reactors. We'll dissect the crises that nearly derailed it and the innovations, like thorium and modular designs, that are fueling its revival. Beyond power plants, we'll uncover how nuclear technology heals, explores, and navigates, and we'll peer into the future, where fusion reactors, mimicking the sun's own power, could unlock boundless energy. This is the story of the peaceful atom, a force that has shaped our past and will define our tomorrow. Let's step back in time to unravel the epic saga of nuclear energy, a journey from the wild skepticism of brilliant minds to a dazzling era when the atom powered the dreams of nations. This is the story of how humanity tamed the most formidable force in nature, turning it from a scientific curiosity into a cornerstone of modern civilization. It's a tale of doubt, discovery, and triumph, with a cast of visionary scientists and a backdrop of global ambition. Welcome to the history of the peaceful atom, where the impossible became reality. Picture the early decades of the 20th century. The world of science was buzzing with excitement over the atom, but also steeped in doubt. Giants like Ernest Rutherford, the man who first mapped the atom's structure, Bezalel dismissed the idea of harnessing its energy as the stuff of mad dreams. Albert Einstein, no less, echoed this sentiment, declaring that atoms would never yield power on demand. It was as if they'd need to split themselves willingly. Their skepticism wasn't born of ignorance. It was grounded in the sheer complexity of the challenge. Splitting an atom to release energy was one thing, but controlling a chain reaction, where one split nucleus triggers others in a cascading dance of energy, was a puzzle that seemed unsolvable. Imagine trying to choreograph a billion tiny explosions, each one unpredictable, each one smaller than a speck of dust. If a single neutron veered off course, the whole process could fizzle out. To the greatest minds of the era, from Enrico Fermi to Igor Kurchatov, this felt like chasing a mirage. Yet the mirage began to take shape. In the late 1930s, a French scientist, Frédéric Joliot-Curie, made a breakthrough that shook the scientific world. His experiments showed that a chain reaction wasn't just possible, it could sustain itself. One neutron splitting an atom could release more neutrons, which could split more atoms, and so on in a controlled frenzy. This discovery flipped the script. Suddenly, the atom wasn't just a theoretical playground, it was a potential powerhouse. Robert Oppenheimer, who initially scoffed at the idea, calling early experiments nonsense, soon joined Einstein in urging the American government to fund nuclear research. Their plea sparked the Manhattan Project, a colossal effort born in the shadow of war. While its immediate goal was military, the seeds of peaceful nuclear energy were planted, waiting for the right moment to bloom. That moment came in the early 1940s, when Enrico Fermi achieved the unthinkable. In a makeshift lab beneath the bleachers of a Chicago stadium, he built the world's first nuclear reactor, dubbed the Chicago Pile. This wasn't a sleek machine, but a crude stack of uranium and graphite, carefully arranged to coax a chain reaction into life. When it worked, it was a quiet revolution. No explosions, just a steady hum of energy. Fermi's success proved that the atom could be tamed, not just for destruction, but for creation. It was a beacon of hope, signaling that nuclear power could light homes, fuel industries, and reshape the future. Scientists began to dream big. Glenn Seaborg, a leading figure in nuclear research, envisioned nuclear-powered rockets to the moon, artificial hearts driven by tiny reactors, even swimming pools warmed by plutonium. These ideas, published in a landmark book called The Atomic Age, captured the world's imagination, setting the stage for what was to come. Fast forward to the mid-20th century, and the peaceful atom took its first real step into the world. In a small Soviet town called Obninsk, a team led by Igor Kurchatov did something no one had done before. They built and launched the world's first nuclear power plant connected to a public energy grid. This wasn't a lab experiment, it was a working station delivering electricity to homes and businesses. The Obninsk plant was modest, capable of powering only a small community, but its impact was monumental. It showed the world that the atom could serve humanity, not just threaten it. The scars of Hiroshima and Nagasaki were still fresh, but Obninsk offered a different vision, atoms lighting up the night, not erasing it. Kurchatov and his team worked in uncharted territory with no blueprints or precedents, solving problems through sheer ingenuity. Their success was a testament to human grit and a spark that ignited a global movement. The world took notice. In the mid-1950s, Britain followed suit, firing up its own nuclear plant at Calder Hall. A year later, the United States joined the club with a shipping port reactor, and soon after, France brought its Marcoule plant online. These were the early notes of a symphony that would crescendo over the next few decades. By the late 20th century, nuclear power was no longer a novelty. It was a global force. The turning point came in the early 1970s, when a geopolitical storm shook the world's energy markets. A conflict in the Middle East sent oil prices soaring, leaving nations scrambling for alternatives. Nuclear power, immune to the whims of oil markets, became the answer. Countries poured resources into building reactors, and the growth was staggering. In just a few decades, nuclear plants went from powering small towns to rivaling entire coal industries, supplying electricity to millions. No country embraced this more than France. In the wake of the oil crisis, French leaders launched an ambitious plan named after a visionary politician, Pierre Mesmer. The goal? Energy independence through nuclear power. France didn't just build reactors, it built an empire of them. By the late 20th century, most of the country's electricity came from nuclear plants, a feat unmatched anywhere else. France wasn't just keeping its own lights on, it was selling surplus power to its neighbors like a baker with too many loaves. This was the golden age of nuclear energy, a time when the atom seemed poised to dominate the world's energy future. Scientists, engineers, and policymakers alike saw it as the key to a new era of prosperity, where clean, reliable power would fuel progress for generations. But this golden age wasn't just about electricity, it was about dreaming bigger. The same scientists who built reactors imagined nuclear-powered ships crossing oceans, planes soaring without fossil fuels, and even cities on the moon powered by compact reactors. These dreams, while sometimes fanciful, drove innovation. The Soviet Union, for instance, began experimenting with nuclear-powered icebreakers, vessels that could carve through Arctic ice to open new trade routes and support exploration. The United States explored nuclear propulsion for spacecraft, laying the groundwork for future missions to distant planets. The peaceful atom wasn't just lighting homes, it was pushing the boundaries of what humanity could achieve. This era of optimism and ambition set the stage for nuclear energy's rise, but it wasn't without challenges. The road ahead would test the industry's resilience as accidents, economics, and public perception loomed on the horizon. Yet for a shining moment, the atom was a symbol of progress, a testament to what humans could do when they dared to dream big. From the skepticism of the early 20th century to the triumphs of Obninsk and beyond, the peaceful atom proved that even the smallest particles could spark a revolution. The golden age of nuclear energy was a time of boundless optimism, when the atom seemed destined to power the world into a bright, limitless future. Reactors sprang up across the globe, lighting cities and fueling dreams of a new era. But like any epic tale, the story took a darker turn. By the late 20th century, the nuclear dream faltered, caught in a storm of economic shifts, catastrophic accidents, and a public that grew wary of the atom's power. This is the story of nuclear energy's crisis and stagnation, a chapter of setbacks that nearly dimmed its light, but also set the stage for its remarkable comeback. Let's set the scene. The world of the late 20th century was changing fast. The oil crisis of the early 1970s, when conflict in the Middle East sent fuel prices soaring, had made nuclear power the darling of energy planners. It was clean, reliable, and free from the whims of oil markets. Nations like France leaned hard into nuclear, building reactors that supplied most of their electricity and even exported surplus power to neighbors. But as the 1970s gave way to the 1980s, the winds shifted. The oil crisis eased and prices for fossil fuels plummeted. Suddenly, coal and oil plants looked like cheaper bets again. Building a nuclear power plant, on the other hand, was no small feat. These were massive projects requiring years of planning, armies of engineers, and vast sums of money. The price tag kept climbing, not just because of the tech, but because of something else. Red tape. Governments, spooked by the growing complexity of nuclear plants, began piling on regulations. Safety standards tightened, and rightfully so. Nobody wanted a reactor cutting corners. But every new rule meant more paperwork, more inspections, and more costs. In many countries, the energy sector was being privatized, shifting from state control to profit-driven companies. For these businesses, nuclear plants started looking like risky investments. Why sink a fortune into a reactor that might take a decade to build when a gas plant could be up and running in half the time for a fraction of the cost? The math wasn't adding up, and the momentum of the nuclear boom began to slow. Then came the accidents that shook the world. In the late 1970s, a nuclear plant in the United States, called 3 Mile Island, suffered a partial meltdown. A mix of equipment failure and human error let the reactor's core overheat, releasing a small amount of radiation. Nobody died, and the environmental impact was minimal, but the incident hit like a thunderbolt. Headlines screamed danger, and the public's trust in nuclear power took a hit. People began to wonder, was this technology as safe as promised? The answer was still forming when, less than a decade later, a far greater disaster struck. In the mid-1980s, in a place called Chernobyl, a Soviet nuclear plant became the site of the worst nuclear accident in history. A flawed reactor design, coupled with human mistakes during a test, led to an explosion that ripped the plant apart. Radioactive particles spewed into the air, spreading across borders and leaving a trail of devastation. Workers and first responders lost their lives, entire communities were uprooted, and the land itself bore scars that linger to this day. Chernobyl wasn't just a tragedy, it was a turning point. The world watched in horror, and nuclear energy, once a symbol of progress, became synonymous with peril. The image of a glowing, unstoppable reactor haunted the public imagination, fueled by newsreels and grim stories. These accidents weren't the sole reason for nuclear's decline, but they were the spark that lit a fire of doubt. Popular culture piled on, turning nuclear power into a villain. In a famous animated show about a family in a town called Springfield, the local nuclear plant was run by a greedy, cartoonish tycoon who embodied everything people feared: negligence, profit over safety, and a whiff of danger. This wasn't just entertainment, it reflected a growing sentiment. Nuclear plants, once hailed as engineering marvels, were now seen as ticking time bombs, too risky and too expensive to justify. The fallout was stark. In the United States, new nuclear plants stopped being built altogether. Projects that were already underway were scrapped, and existing reactors aged without replacements. Across the world, the pace of nuclear expansion slowed to a crawl. Some countries like Germany began talking about phasing out nuclear power entirely, betting on wind and solar instead. The expertise that had fueled the golden age started to slip away. Young engineers and scientists, seeing little future in nuclear, turned to other fields: computers, biotech, or renewables. The knowledge built over decades, from the gritty work of pioneers like Igor Kurchatov to the grand visions of Glenn Seaborg, began to gather dust like ancient scrolls left on a shelf. But this wasn't the end of the story. Even as nuclear energy faded, the world was changing in ways that would pull it back into the spotlight. By the early 21st century, the cracks in the fossil fuel system were impossible to ignore. Cities grew, industries expanded, and new technologies like electric cars and smart devices demanded more electricity than ever. At the same time, the planet was sending warning signals: rising temperatures, melting ice, and raging storms. Fossil fuels weren't just dirty, they were unsustainable. Renewables like solar and wind were gaining ground, but they couldn't provide the steady, round-the-clock power needed to keep the world running. Nuclear energy, despite its tarnished reputation, started to look like an answer again. A new generation of voices began to champion the atom. Innovators like Elon Musk, never shy about shaking things up, called nuclear power a critical piece of the puzzle for a sustainable future. Unlike coal plants that choke the air or gas plants tied to volatile markets, nuclear offered a stable, low-carbon solution. And it wasn't just talk. New technologies were emerging to address old fears. Reactors were being designed to be safer, shutting down automatically in emergencies. New fuels like thorium promised less waste and fewer risks. Even the economics were shifting as long-term investments in clean energy started to make sense again. This turning point wasn't just about need, it was about rediscovery. Countries like France, which had never wavered in their commitment to nuclear, stood as proof of what was possible. While others scaled back, France kept most of its electricity coming from reactors, exporting power and keeping emissions low. Their success was a reminder: the peaceful atom hadn't failed, it had been sidelined by fear and short-term thinking. As the world faced a new century with new challenges, the stage was set for nuclear energy to rise again, not as a relic of the past, but as a cornerstone of the future. The story of nuclear energy is a tale of harnessing the atom's might, but not all atoms are created equal. For decades, uranium has been the star of the nuclear stage, powering reactors that light up cities and drive progress. But there's a new contender in town: thorium, a lesser-known element that's sparking excitement as a safer, cleaner, and more abundant alternative. As the world rediscovers nuclear power, the race is on to decide which fuel will shape the future. This is the showdown between uranium and thorium, a clash of technologies that could redefine how we power our planet. Buckle up, because the peaceful atom is about to get a serious upgrade. Let's start with the basics. Uranium has been the backbone of nuclear energy since the dawn of the atomic age. It's the fuel that powered the first reactors, from the makeshift Chicago pile to the sprawling plants of today. But uranium is a bit like a high-maintenance rock star. It's powerful, sure, but it comes with baggage, complex processing, safety risks, and a legacy of waste that lingers for generations. Thorium, on the other hand, is like the quiet genius in the wings, ready to step into the spotlight. Found in greater abundance across the Earth's crust, thorium promises a smoother, safer, and more sustainable path to nuclear power. To understand why, let's break down the differences, from the ground they're mined from to the energy they unleash. First up, getting the fuel. Digging uranium out of the earth is no picnic. It's often found in low concentrations, meaning you need to move mountains of rock to get a usable amount. Worse, uranium mining comes with a nasty sidekick: a radioactive gas called radon that can cause serious health problems. Miners need sophisticated ventilation systems just to stay safe, driving up costs and complexity. Thorium, by contrast, is a breeze to extract. It's far more plentiful, found in much higher concentrations in places like India, Australia, and Norway. Better yet, thorium doesn't kick up toxic gases during mining. It's like the element is ready to cooperate, eager to get to work without the drama. Once you've got the raw material, the next step is turning it into fuel. Here, uranium's high-maintenance nature really shows. Natural uranium is mostly made up of an isotope that's useless for chain reactions, with only a tiny fraction capable of sustaining the process. To make it work, uranium has to go through a costly and intricate process called enrichment, boosting the proportion of the reactive isotope. This isn't just expensive, it's a geopolitical headache. Enriched uranium can be used for more than just power plants. It's also the stuff of nuclear weapons, so every step is watched like a hawk by international regulators. Thorium sidesteps this mess entirely. The most common form of thorium is ready to go straight from the ground, requiring minimal processing. No enrichment, no fuss, and no risk of fueling anything more dangerous than a power plant. Now let's talk about the heart of the matter. What happens inside the reactor? Uranium reactors rely on a self-sustaining chain reaction, where splitting atoms release neutrons that split more atoms, creating a cascade of energy. It's a brilliant setup, but it's also a bit like riding a wild horse. If something goes wrong, say a cooling system fails or controls malfunction, the reaction can keep galloping, potentially leading to disasters like the one in Chernobyl. Stopping a uranium reactor in an emergency is like trying to rein in that horse mid-charge. Thorium reactors, by contrast, are more like a well-trained steed. They don't sustain a chain reaction on their own. They need an external source of neutrons, like a small amount of uranium or another trigger, to keep going. If trouble strikes, you just cut off that source, and the reaction stops dead in its tracks. No meltdown, no chaos, just a graceful shutdown. There's a special kind of thorium reactor that takes safety to another level, the liquid fuel reactor. Instead of solid fuel rods, these use thorium dissolved in a molten salt. If something goes haywire, the liquid can be drained into a safe container, halting the reaction instantly. It's like flipping an off switch for the entire system. This design makes catastrophic accidents almost impossible, addressing the fears that have haunted nuclear power since its early days. Imagine a reactor that doesn't just tolerate mistakes, but shrugs them off with ease. That's the promise of thorium. Efficiency is where thorium really shines. A small amount of thorium can produce a staggering amount of energy, enough to rival hundreds of times its weight in uranium or millions of times that in coal. This isn't just about raw power, it's about getting more bang for your buck. Thorium's efficiency means you need less fuel to achieve the same output, stretching resources further and reducing the strain on mining operations. And then there's the question of waste. Uranium reactors leave behind radioactive byproducts that stay hazardous for thousands of years, requiring elaborate storage solutions deep underground. Thorium reactors, by contrast, produce a fraction of the waste, and what they do leave behind is far less troublesome, losing its radioactivity much faster. This makes disposal simpler, cheaper, and far kinder to the planet. There's one more ace up thorium's sleeve. It's a dead end for weapons. Uranium, when enriched, can be diverted to build bombs, which is why nuclear programs in some countries raise global eyebrows. Thorium, however, transforms into a form of uranium that's nearly useless for weapons due to its intense radiation, making it a nightmare to handle for anything but power generation. This makes thorium a diplomatic darling, ideal for nations looking to harness nuclear energy without sparking international tensions. Imagine building power plants in regions once considered too risky, knowing the fuel won't end up in a warhead. That's a game changer for global energy security. The world is starting to take notice. In the early 21st century, China made headlines by launching the first commercial thorium reactor, a liquid salt design that's as cutting edge as it sounds. This wasn't a lab experiment, but a working plant, proving thorium's potential on a grand scale. India, sitting on some of the world's largest thorium deposits, is pouring resources into its own thorium-based program, aiming to power its growing economy with this abundant fuel. Other nations like Norway and Canada are exploring thorium reactors, with research programs pushing the boundaries of what's possible. These efforts are still in their early stages, but they signal a shift, a recognition that thorium could be the key to a safer, more sustainable nuclear future. Uranium isn't going anywhere just yet. It's still the workhorse of the nuclear world, powering most of today's reactors with proven reliability. But its limitations, high costs, safety risks, and waste headaches, are hard to ignore. Thorium, with its abundance, simplicity, and safety, feels like the next chapter. It's not perfect. Setting up thorium reactors requires solving technical challenges like finding the right materials to handle molten salts or fine-tuning the neutron sources. But the potential is undeniable. As the world grapples with rising energy demands and a warming planet, thorium offers a path forward, one where the peaceful atom doesn't just power our homes, but does so with less risk, less waste, and a lot more promise. The peaceful atom is rising again, like a phoenix from the ashes of doubt and decline. After decades of stagnation, nuclear energy is reclaiming its place as a cornerstone of the world's quest for clean, reliable power. Across the globe, nations are forging their own paths, some doubling down on proven technologies, others betting on bold new ideas. From sprawling power plants in Asia to compact reactors in the West, the nuclear renaissance is a tapestry of ambition, innovation, and strategy. This is the story of how the world is rediscovering the atom's potential, with each country writing its own chapter in this new era of nuclear energy. Let's start with China, a titan in the nuclear revival. Not long ago, China's energy landscape leaned heavily on coal, choking cities with smog and fueling a ravenous appetite for power. But in recent decades, the nation has pivoted, embracing nuclear energy with unmatched zeal. Picture a country building reactors faster than most can build highways. China has transformed from a newcomer to a global leader, with dozens of plants now humming across its vast terrain. What sets China apart is its willingness to push boundaries. In the early 21st century, it launched the world's first commercial thorium reactor, a liquid salt design that's safer and cleaner than traditional models. This wasn't just a technical feat, it was a statement of intent. China is betting big on thorium alongside conventional reactors to fuel its booming economy while slashing carbon emissions. The nation's leaders see nuclear as a path to energy independence, a way to power megacities and high-tech industries without leaning on foreign oil or gas. With plans to expand further in the coming decades, China is setting the pace for the global nuclear renaissance. Meanwhile, Russia is playing a different game, one rooted in experience and global reach. Russia's nuclear story is steeped in history, from the pioneering days of the Obninsk plant to today's sprawling reactor complexes. The nation's approach is like a master craftsman refining a time-tested design. At a factory in a city called Volgodonsk, engineers are churning out reactor components at a pace that surpasses even the Soviet era's peak. These aren't just for domestic use. Russia is exporting nuclear know-how to the world. Countries like Turkey, Bangladesh, Egypt, and Indonesia are building their first nuclear plants with Russian expertise, from blueprints to training. Take Turkey, for instance, where a massive plant on the Mediterranean coast is set to light up homes in the near future. Russia's strategy is conservative yet ambitious. Stick with proven uranium-based reactors while expanding its influence as a nuclear superpower. This blend of reliability and global outreach keeps Russia at the forefront of the atomic revival. Across the ocean, the United States is taking a different tack, focusing on innovation over scale. After decades of standing still, new reactors were barely built since the late 20th century. The US is now betting on a new breed of nuclear technology, small modular reactors. These aren't the hulking giants of old. They're compact, flexible, and designed to fit where big plants can't. Imagine a reactor small enough to power a remote town or a military base, or a built in a factory and shipped to site like a high-tech Lego set. Companies like NuScale are leading the charge, crafting reactors that are cheaper to build and easier to maintain. The beauty of these designs is their versatility. They can be deployed in rural areas, industrial hubs, or even disaster zones, providing steady power without the massive upfront costs of traditional plants. The US, sees these reactors as a way to revive its nuclear industry, blending cutting-edge tech with practical economics. While progress is slower than in China or Russia, the first of these modular plants is expected to come online in the coming years, signaling a cautious but promising return to the atomic fold. Not every country is on board, though. Germany, for instance, has chosen a different path, one that's raised eyebrows across the globe. In the early 21st century, Germany made a bold decision to shut down all its nuclear plants, betting instead on wind, solar, and other renewables. The move was driven by public fear, rooted in memories of past nuclear accidents, and a political push for a greener image. But the reality has been messier. Without nuclear's steady output, Germany has leaned on coal and imported power, often from nuclear-heavy neighbors like France, to keep the lights on. Critics, including outspoken figures like Elon Musk, have called this a misstep, arguing that abandoning nuclear in a world desperate for clean energy is like throwing away a winning hand. Germany's choice highlights the challenges of the nuclear renaissance. Even as technology advances, public perception and politics can pull in the opposite direction. Then there are the newcomers, nations stepping into the nuclear arena for the first time. Turkey, Bangladesh, and Egypt are building plants that will soon join the global grid, each driven by a mix of necessity and ambition. Bangladesh, for example, is a fast-growing nation with a power-hungry population. Its new reactors, built with Russian help, promise to bring stable electricity to millions, reducing reliance on fossil fuels. Egypt's project on its northern coast aims to bolster energy security in a region where power shortages are common. These emerging players are reshaping the nuclear map, proving that the peaceful atom isn't just for the old guard, it's a global opportunity. Countries like Indonesia are also in line, eager to harness nuclear power to fuel their rise in a warming world. What ties these diverse strategies together is a shared realization. Nuclear energy is no longer the risky gamble it once seemed. New technologies are making it safer and more practical. Small modular reactors, like those in the US, offer a nimble alternative to traditional plants. Thorium, as China and others are proving, brings efficiency and safety to the table. Even traditional uranium reactors are getting upgrades, with smarter designs that reduce risks and waste. The Renaissance isn't just about building more, it's about building better. Nations are learning from the past, blending innovation with caution to ensure nuclear power delivers on its promise without repeating old mistakes. This global revival is also a response to bigger forces. The world's thirst for energy is growing, driven by everything from electric cars to artificial intelligence. At the same time, the planet is sending urgent signals: rising seas, scorching summers, and violent storms. Nuclear power offers a way to meet these demands while cutting carbon emissions to near zero. Unlike wind or solar, which depend on weather, nuclear delivers steady, round-the-clock power. Unlike coal or gas, it doesn't choke the atmosphere. The Renaissance is a recognition that the peaceful atom, once sidelined by fear and economics, is now a vital tool in the fight for a sustainable future. The peaceful atom is far more than a workhorse for powering cities. While nuclear reactors light up homes and industries, their reach extends into realms that touch the very edges of human ambition. From healing the sick to exploring the cosmos, from navigating icy seas to dreaming of a world powered by the stars, nuclear technology is rewriting what's possible. As we stand on the cusp of a new atomic era, this is the story of how the peaceful atom transcends power plants, and a glimpse into the boundless future it promises. Let's begin with medicine, where nuclear technology is nothing short of a lifesaver. Imagine a patient facing a cancer diagnosis, the kind that defies surgery or traditional treatments. Nuclear medicine steps in like a silent hero, wielding radioactive particles to target disease with precision. Special compounds known as radiopharmaceuticals combine a guiding molecule with a radioactive isotope. The molecule seeks out cancer cells like a bloodhound tracking a scent, while the isotope delivers a burst of radiation to destroy the tumor, sparing healthy tissue nearby. This isn't science fiction, it's happening in hospitals worldwide, treating cancers of the thyroid, prostate, and blood, as well as heart and neurological conditions. The magic lies in the atom's ability to pinpoint problems, whether it's diagnosing a hidden tumor with glowing isotopes or blasting away malignant cells. Russia, a leader in this field, produces these critical isotopes, helping doctors save countless lives. This is the peaceful atom at its most human, turning the fearsome power of radiation into a tool for healing. Now, let's lift our gaze to the stars. The cosmos has always called to humanity, but getting there is no easy feat. Chemical rockets, the backbone of space exploration, are like sprinters, fast but limited, burning out quickly and struggling to carry heavy loads across vast distances. Nuclear technology offers a different path. Imagine engines powered by the same forces that drive reactors on Earth, capable of propelling spacecraft to Mars or beyond. These nuclear engines don't just burn fuel, they harness the atom's energy to generate thrust far more efficiently, opening doors to deep space missions that were once the stuff of dreams. Russia is leading the charge with a project called Zeus, a nuclear-powered space tug designed to haul massive cargo across the solar system. Picture it ferrying supplies to a future lunar base, or towing satellites into distant orbits. The United States is also in the game, developing nuclear thermal propulsion that could cut travel time to Mars dramatically. With nuclear power, the stars aren't just closer, they're within reach, promising a future where humanity isn't bound to Earth. Closer to home, the peaceful atom is conquering Earth's harshest frontiers. In the Arctic, where ice locks the seas for much of the year, Russia deploys a fleet unlike any other, nuclear-powered icebreakers. These massive ships, driven by compact reactors, carve through ice thicker than a house is tall, opening routes for trade and exploration. They deliver supplies to remote outposts, support scientific missions, and keep vital shipping lanes open in places where no other vessel could survive. Russia stands alone in this arena, with ships like Arctica and Sibir showcasing the atom's ability to tame the wildest environments. Each icebreaker is a floating power plant, its reactor humming with enough energy to break through frozen barriers and connect the world's northernmost reaches. This is nuclear energy not just powering homes, but forging paths where none existed before. These applications, medicine, space, and Arctic exploration, are proof that the peaceful atom is a versatile force, capable of solving problems far beyond electricity. But what lies ahead? The nuclear renaissance we're witnessing today is just the beginning, a stepping stone to an even grander vision. Scientists are looking to the stars not just for exploration, but for inspiration. Fusion energy, the process that powers the sun, is the holy grail of nuclear technology. Unlike today's reactors, which split atoms to release energy, fusion combines them, mimicking the reactions that make stars shine. The result? Near limitless power with no long-lived radioactive waste and no risk of meltdowns. It's the kind of energy that could run entire cities without a whiff of carbon or a speck of dangerous residue. The path to fusion isn't easy, it's like trying to bottle a piece of the sun, but the world is getting closer. In France, a massive international project called ITER is building a reactor to test fusion's potential. It's a slow, complex journey with challenges like containing superheated plasma hotter than the sun's core. Yet every step forward brings us nearer to a future where energy is abundant, clean, and sustainable. Other projects, from private startups to government labs, are racing to crack the fusion code with hopes of commercial reactors in the coming decades. If they succeed, the peaceful atom will no longer be just a tool. It will be a cornerstone of a new world, where energy scarcity is a distant memory. This future isn't just about fusion. The technologies driving today's renaissance, thorium reactors, small modular designs, are already transforming the landscape. Thorium, with its safety and efficiency, could power nations with minimal waste, while compact reactors bring electricity to remote corners of the globe. Countries like China, Russia, and the United States are pushing these innovations, while newcomers like Turkey and Bangladesh join the nuclear fold, building plants to fuel their growing economies. The atom is no longer the exclusive domain of superpowers, it's a global promise, offering energy security and environmental hope to nations everywhere. The story of the peaceful atom began in a small Soviet town decades ago, when the Obninsk plant first sent electricity into the grid. That spark lit a fire that spread across the world, powering homes, healing bodies, and exploring new frontiers. Today, as we stand at the dawn of a new atomic era, that fire burns brighter than ever. The peaceful atom is more than a technology. It's a symbol of what humanity can achieve when we harness nature's most fundamental forces. From hospitals to the Arctic, from Earth to the stars, the atom is carrying us forward toward a future where the impossible becomes reality once again.